In South Sudan, tribal and political warfare has resulted in an estimated 100,000 deaths. Over 9,000 children have been forced to fight as child soldiers. 230,000 children are impacted annually by malnutrition. 1 in 7 children will die before the age of 5. People are forced to live in terrifying conditions and have nowhere to go, often without proper food, medication, or even water.
We've got hepatitis E outbreak here, diarrhea cases. It's just a lack of water, it's just a lack of everything, lack of washing. People having to walk too long, so they're using the surface water. Skin diseases we have now on the rise. No, the water's the cause of it already.
Humanitarian sources are trying their hardest to assist, but even they can't fully tackle the massive battleground that is war-torn South Sudan. But where did all this violence, destruction, and chaos come from? In 1951, tensions between a group known as the South Sudan Liberation Movement and the government of Sudan erupted into a civil war. The Christian-backed SSLM objected to the government's implementation of Sharia law. After 2 bloody civil wars, during which approximately 2.2 million people died and millions were displaced, the conflict ended with the Comprehensive Peace Agreement in 2005. The CPA called for a ceasefire, as well as a democratic government for Sudan. In 2007, the SSLM began withdrawing from the government, and in January 2011, the people of South Sudan voted in a referendum to split from Sudan. The newly formed Republic of South Sudan joined the United Nations and African Union that same year. However, despite its split from Sudan, South Sudan still faced many internal problems that caused further conflict. The president of South Sudan, Salva Kiir Mayardit, and his conflicts with the vice president, Riek Machar, are the main reason that the violent situation in South Sudan is so prevalent today. This tenuous relationship between the two was visible prior to South Sudan gaining its independence. With each man having support from separate tribes, their political union was never whole. This was due in part to their different positions regarding economic and political issues within South Sudan, which eventually escalated, as well as President Mayardit firing Vice President Machar. This decision divided the nation into 2 factions, one supporting the president and one supporting the vice president, and thus the conflict began. In the present day, the fighting parties have become less defined, as the conflict has deteriorated from one of 2 political sides to one of many tribes seeking retribution for attacks that occurred on their homes. Recently, Secretary of State John Kerry visited Ethiopia and requested the presence of the African Union and the Ethiopian military within South Sudan to help stabilize the situation.
With the current mass killing going on in the country and political detention, there can be no conducive atmosphere for peace talk. Therefore, we are asking for the following: release of political detainees and accord them free movement and political space to join the current peace talk in Addis Ababa. Withdrawal of Ugandan military forces from South Sudan, lifting of state emergency throughout the country, humanitarian access to internally displaced persons throughout the country, free access of humanitarian organizations and UN Human Rights Council to investigate atrocities and critical issues pertaining to human rights abuses.
We envisage a rapid agreement on the cessation of hostilities and ceasefire arrangements in order to create a conducive atmosphere for addressing outstanding political issues. Our people have suffered a lot during the struggle for our independence, and they should not suffer again in our hands.